Practice 8-8, factoring by grouping. So grouping is when you take two parts of a four-term polynomial and make it look kind of like this. So you factor out a common factor in the first two terms to get a binomial, and you factor out a number in the second two terms to get a binomial. And as you can see, these two, a plus 2 and a plus 2, are the same. So if you consider it to be one number, you can kind of factor that out. So you can factor out the a plus 2, and what you're going to have left is the x and the minus 2. So in your second parentheses, you can put x minus 2. Okay, so this is number 1, a plus 2 times x minus 2. Okay, so number 4 over here, we have our four terms. So what we can do is factor out, look for what these two have in common and factor that out. So these two have y in common. And what you have left in the first two terms is y minus 5w. Okay, and then you're going to look at these two terms and factor out what they have in common. So they have a 4 in common. And what's left after you divide each term by 4 is y minus 5w. So as you can see, this in the parentheses and this in the parentheses is the same. Okay, so you can factor that out. Our first term is going to be y minus 5w, and then our second term is going to be the outside parts of the parentheses, y plus 4. Okay, so this is our final answer for number 4. Okay, so now I'm going to show you another way of doing this. As you can see, we have four terms, and what we can do now is we can make a box and put each of these into one square. So we have ax plus bx minus ay minus by. Okay, so we're going to look at our first column and look at what these two have in common, which is an a. And then we're going to look at our second column and see what these two have in common, which is a b. Now we're going to go across and see what they have in common, which is an x. And then we're going to go across in our second row and see what they have in common, which is a y. Okay? Or minus y, since they both have negatives right here. So we're going to put minus y. So these are going to be our two factors, a plus b and x minus y. So we can write it down, in parentheses form, a plus b times x minus y. And this is our final answer. This is a funky plus sign. I'm going to fix that. There we go. Final answer. So once again, we have our four terms, but first we want to put it in standard format from biggest exponent, which was going to be here, to smallest exponent, which is going to be our constant. It's very important that our constant is always the last one, or else it's not going to work. So we have x squared y plus 3x squared plus 2y plus 6. And now we can make our box. Okay, so we have x squared y, 3x squared, 2y, and 6. So when we look at these, we're going to look at what this first row have in common, which is x squared. So we're going to write x squared. And then in our second row, we're going to look at what these two have in common. They can both be divided by 2, so we're going to write 2. Now we're going to go down. In our first row, they both have a y in common. So on top, we're going to write y. And in our row going down, 3 and 6 are both factors, or multiples of 3, so we're going to write 3. So we have x squared plus 2 times y plus 3. And this is going to be our final answer. Okay, now we have 4x squared plus 8x plus 3. So what we want to do is, since there's only 3 terms, we can't put it in a box right now. So we want to split up this middle term into two different terms. And the way we do that is we take our first term and our last term and we multiply them together. So 4 times 3 is 12. Okay, so we need to look for two factors of 12 that add to equal 8. So we have 3 times 4, and if you add them, that equals 7. We have 6 times 2, and if you add them, they equal 8. So this 8x can be split up into 6x plus 2x. Okay? So, and then we can carry down these two terms, this 4x squared and this 3. So we have 4x squared plus 6x plus 2x plus 3. Now we have our four-term polynomial that we can put in our box. So we are going to say 4x squared, 6x, 2x, and 3. So in our first row, we're going to look for what these two have in common. Okay, 4 and 6 are both multiples of 2, and they both have an x, so we're going to say 2x. In our second row, 2x and 3 don't have anything in common, so we're just going to put 1. Okay, in our rows going down, we have 4x squared and 2x, so once again we have 2x that they have in common. And going down in our second column, we have 6x times 3. Those are both multiples of 3, so we're going to write 3. So our answer is going to be 2x plus 1, which is this side right here, and 2x plus 3, which is this top part right here. And this is going to be our final answer. Okay, so for number 16, once again, we're going to take our first and last term because we want to split them up into 4 terms. So 6 times 3 is 18. And we're looking for two factors that add to equal 19. So anytime this middle term is one more than this, what's probably going to happen is it's going to be that number times 1, because when you add it, it equals the middle term. So this is going to be 18x plus 1x, because that equals 19x. So now, whoops, that's not an eraser. So now we can bring down our other two terms. We have 6x squared plus 18x plus 1x plus 3, and we can make our box. So we have 6x squared, 18x, 1x, and 3. So let's look at this first row. We have 6x and 18x. They're both multiples of 6, and they both have an x. So we are going to write 6x. In our second row, we have 1x and 3. They don't have anything in common, so we're just going to write 1. Now we're going to go down. We have 6x squared and 1x, and they both have an x in common. So we're going to write x up here. And then we have 18 and 3, and they're both multiples of 3, so we're going to write 3. So here are our two factors. We have 6x plus 1, the one on the side right here, and then we're going to write x plus 3. And that's our second factor. And this is our final answer. So number 19, we have 16y squared plus 10y plus 1. We're going to take these two and multiply them to see if we can split up this middle one into two terms. So 16 times 1 is 16. And let's see what factors we can get. 4 times 4 is 16, and when you add them, it equals 8, not 10, so it's not that. There's 5, whoops, not 5, what am I saying? 8 times 2, and when you add them, they equal 10. So this is 8y, and this is 2y. Okay, and then now we're going to carry down our other terms, plus 1, and 16y squared. Okay, and now that we have our 4 terms, we can make our box. So we have 16y squared plus 8y plus 2y plus 1. So in our first row, there is they both have a y in common, so we can write down a y. And 16 and 8 are both multiples of 8, so we have 8y. In our second row, we have 2y and 1, which those two don't have anything in common, so we're just going to write 1. Oops. Okay, now we can go down. We have 16y squared and y. Once again, they both have a y in common, so we're going to write y, and they're both multiples of 2, so we're going to write 2y. Then we have 8y and 1, and they don't have anything in common, so we're just going to write 1. So our final answer is 8y plus 1, which is our side factor right here, and then 2y plus 1. Okay, and this is our final answer. So we have 14x squared plus 15x minus 9. So we are multiplying 14 times negative 9. And you can use a calculator for that if you want. I don't expect you to do it in your head, or you can use long multiplication. That's fine too. So 14 times negative 9, don't forget that a positive times a negative is going to be a negative number. So this is going to be negative 126. So now we're looking for two factors, one positive and one negative, that add to equal positive 15, because we want to split this up. So 126, we can divide it by 2 and get, let's see, 63. So that's way too big, so it's not going to be that. We have 6 and 21. So 6 minus 21 is 15. And since 15 is positive, the bigger number is going to be positive. So we have negative 6 and positive 21. So we can split this up into negative 6x plus 21x. And then we're going to bring down the rest of this polynomial. So we're going to say minus 9 and then 14x squared. Okay, and now we can make our box. So we have 14x squared minus 6x plus 21x minus 9. So 14x squared and 21x, what they have in common is 7x. Negative 6x and negative 9, what they have in common is negative 3. 14x squared and negative 6x, what they have in common is 2x. And then going across again, 21x squared and negative 9, what they have in common is 3. So this is going to be our two factors, 7x minus 3 and 2x plus 3. And this is our final answer. Okay, we have x squared plus 3x squared plus 4x plus 12. So we already have our 4 terms, so we can just go right ahead and make our box. So we have x to the third, 3x squared, 4x, and 12. So first we're going to go across x to the third and 3x squared. What they have in common is x squared. Then we're going to go across again, 4x and 12. What they have in common is 4. Now we're going to go down, x to the third times 4x, and they just have an x in common. And then we're going to go down once more, 3x squared and 12, and what they have in common is 3. So here are two factors, x plus 3 and x squared plus 4. And this is our final answer. Last one, 4x squared minus 20x squared plus 3x minus 15. And as you can see, we already have 4 terms, so we can just go straight to making our box. So we have 4x to the third minus 20x squared, 3x minus 15. So going down, 4x to the third and 3x, they just have an x in common. If we look at our second row, we have negative 20x squared and negative 15, and they have a negative 5 in common. Now we're going across, 4x to the third and 20x squared. they have 4x squared in common. Okay, and then going across on our second row, we have 3x and negative 15, and they have a 3 in common. So these are two factors, x minus 5 and 4x squared plus 3. So we're going to write this down, 4x squared plus 3 times x minus 5. And this is our final answer. And this is it for Lesson 6, Practice 8-8.